All right, good evening. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Welcome. A couple of things before we get started. That's such a rabbi thing to say, you know. Before I speak, there are a couple of things I want to say. Right? If you have a cell phone, and I know that you do, please check it and make sure your phone is on silent, or even better, just turn it off if you can possibly stand it. And if you don't know how to turn it off, any of our B'nai Mitzvah will help you. We're going to have a beautiful service tonight. This is a very special time of year. And let's take a moment and just COVID safely turn to your left or your right, in front of you, behind you, and meet your neighbors and say hello. Wish each other Shabbat Shalom. What are we starting with? Page 10.
Classic.
The classic.
Choice.
Yes.
1, 2, 5, and 9.
Rebel.
All right. It's great to be together. Really great to be together. I'm going to give you a tiny glimpse, a preview of my Kol Nidre sermon. It's going to be about what a hug really means. What does it mean? We're so lucky to be together. And I think we all appreciate it in new ways. Of course, the rabbis and the sages figured this out long before us, which is why we're starting with Hine Matov on page 10. Hine Matov. Please join us.
Hine Matov u'manayim, shevet achim gam yachad. Hine Matov u'manayim, shevet achim gam yachad. טוב ומנעים, שבת אחים גם יחד. הנה מה טוב, שבת אחים גם יחד. הנה מה טוב, שבת אחים גם יחד. הנה מה טוב ומנעים, שבת אחים גם יחד. הנה מה טוב ומנעים, שבת אחים גם יחד. גם יחד, הנה מה טוב ומנעים, שבת אחים גם יחד. We're going to begin our Shabbat service by calling up the mothers of our B'nai Mitzvah. We have a table for each one of you, and if you could do us the pleasure of beginning our Shabbat with light and with warmth as we all join together in the blessing of our Shabbat candles.
We're going to be on page 3. Our moms are going to read this little section to prepare us for the lighting of the candles. And I think you should have your B'nai Mitzvah children come up with you, right?
Let's have the grandmothers join as well. We'll have multi-generations, so grandmothers, if you're here, come and join as well.
And
large
moms-
tradition of ours to have all of the women of the household light together.
And moms, come get close to the microphone. Okay. And on a count of 3, moms, you're going to read that reading on the top of page 3. 1, 2, 3.
As these Shabbat candles give light to all who hold them, so may we, by our lives, give light to all who behold us. As the brightness reminds us of the generations of Israel who have kindled light, so may we, in our own day, be among those who kindle light.
Now we'll light our Shabbat candles. And I think your children should help you because it involves picking up those.
We're going to bring in that light of Shabbat 3 times as we join together in our blessing over the candles. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivonu להדליק נר של שבת.
All right, Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Shabbat Shalom. And as these fabulous angels take their seats, we will now welcome some additional angels, the Shabbat angels, as we continue with Shalom Aleichem. We're on page 24.
Shalom Aleichem, Malachei HaSharet, Malachei Elyon, Melech, Malachei HaMlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
Lachem l'shalom, malachei hashalom,
Beautiful. We're going to turn back now. We're going to turn back in our Sidurim to page 20 as we continue with Lecha Dodi, as we welcome the Sabbath bride. Cantor Peicott, which verses are we going to be singing this evening?
1, 2, 5.
Ooh,
and 9.
1, 2, 5, and 9.
Yes.
Inspired choice. Here we go.
Or maybe we'll surprise you. Maybe we'll do different numbers tonight.
That's inspiring as well.
You'll just have to find out.
דודי לקראת כלה, בני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, בני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, בני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, בני שבת נקבלה.
שמור וזכור בכיפור אחד, תשמעי לנו אל המיוחד. אדוני אחד ושמו אחד, ושמות ורד ותהילה.
לך דודי, דודי, לך דודי לקראת כלה, בני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, בני שבת נקבלה.
לקראת שבת לכו ונלכה, כי היא מקור הברכה, מראש מקדם נסוכה, סופה עשה במחשבה תחילה.
לך דודי, לך דודי, לך דודי לקראת כלה, בני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, בני שבת נקבלה.
התעוררי, התעוררי, כי ברך קומי הורי, אורי, שיר דברי, כי כבוד אדוני עלייך נגלה.
לך דודי, לך דודי, לך דודי לקראת כלה, בני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, בני שבת נקבלה. We rise and face the entrance as we greet the Sabbath bride.
בואי בשלום, עטרת עלה, גם בשמחה ובצהלה, תוך אמוני עם סגולה. בואי חלה, בואי חלה.
לך דודי, לך דודי לקראת כלה, בני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, בני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי, לך דודי לקראת כלה, בני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, בני שבת נקבלה. Beautiful. Whoa, whoa, whoa. We remain standing. We remain standing. Nobody says sit. Everybody. And we're going to continue now with the Baruch Hu, our call to prayer.
Take these moments now to make the transition now into Shabbat as we formally begin our evening liturgy with Baruch.
we remain standing. In a moment, we're going to continue with Ahavat Olam, a declaration and affirmation of God's love for us. And the manifestation of that being God's Torah leading us to a life of holiness. And I know we talked about this over this last month, the Jewish month of Elul, right? And that Elul being an acronym for Ani ledodi v'dodi li, that I am my beloved's and my beloved is mine. And I think it's quite beautiful and fitting that we enter into these high holy days built on this foundation of love. So with that, we continue with Ahavat Olam.
Please join us any way you can.
Ahavat Olam Beit Yisrael Ahavta Torah u'mitzvot chukim u'mishpatim otanu lilmod v'tar Akein Adonai Eloheinu v'shofneinu v'kumeinu nasiach bechukecha Akein Adonai Eloheinu v'shofneinu v'kumeinu nasiach bechukecha ונשמח, ונשמח, בדירי תורתך, ומצוותיך, ומצוותיך, לעולם ועד. כי חיינו באורך ימינו, ובהם נראה יומם בלילה. כי חיינו באורך ימינו, ובהם נראה יומם בלילה. הם חיינו באורך ימינו, ובהם נראה יומם בלילה. כי הם חיינו באורך ימינו, ובהם נראה יומם בלילה.
ויהבתך אל תסיר ממנו לעולמים. ברוך אתה אדוני
שמו
אוהב עמו ישראל.
שמע ישראל אדוני אלוהינו אדוני אחד.
ברוך שם כבוד מלכותו לעולם ועד.
You may be seated.
And now we'd like to call up our amazing B'nai Mitzvah. We have Elle, and we have Jordan, and we have Haley, who are going to lead us in the chanting of the Veyahapta, which you can follow along on page 34 of your prayer book. 36. 36. The Shema is on 34.
Veyahapta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavcha u'b'chol nafshecha u'b'chol meodecha v'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher Anohi metzapecha hayom al levavecha v'shinatam levanecha v'divartam bam v'shivtecha b'beitecha uv'lechtecha b'derech u'shofbecha
uvekumeha, ushartam leot al yadeha, vehayu letotafot beineneha, utaftam al mezuzot beiteha, uvishareha, lema'an tizkeru, v'asitem et kol mitzvotai, v'vitem kedoshim le'Elohehem. Ani Adonai Elohehem, asher hotzeiti etem me'eretz Mitzrayim, lihiot lahem Elohim. Ani Adonai Elohehem.
In just a moment, we'll join together on page 40 in the words of Mi Chamocha, our song of freedom and redemption that celebrates that moment when our ancestors, after leaving Egypt, freeing Egyptian bondage, walking through the sea, reached the other side and were finally free, finally forever changed. And this month of Elul that we've been in is about preparing to change ourselves in these high holy days that begin in 3 short days. Ooh, 3 days.
Who's counting?
Who's counting? We're all counting. Is about changing ourselves and our hope that we come out of this month of Elul and we come out of these high holy days changed for the better as our ancestors were millennia ago on the shores of the sea.
חזק ממנו, ברוך אתה אדוני, גאל ישראל.
Let there be love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storms. Adonai, help us to walk with good companions, to live with hope in our hearts and eternity in our thoughts, that we may lie down in peace. and rise up, waiting to do your will.
Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom, l'shalom. Ve'ha'amidenu shomreinu l'chaim. Ufros aleinu sukat shlomecha, ufros aleinu sukat shlomecha.
Shelter us beneath thy wings, O Adonai. Guard us from all harmful things, O Adonai. Keep us safe throughout the night, till we wake with morning's light. Teach us, God, wrong from right. Amen. 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 We're going to continue with the words of Vishamru that we keep and we guard this Shabbat.
ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית העולם.
ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם.
ביני ובין בני ישראל, בני ישראל, אותי לעולם.
ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם.
כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים, את השמיים ואת הארץ.
ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם.
וביום השני שבת, שבת וינפש, ושמרו בני ישראל
את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם.
We'll turn now to page 46 and rise for the Amidah and invite all of our B'nai Mitzvah back up to the Bima to help lead us.
Come up to your microphone so they'll be able to hear
tivta ufi yagi tehilatecha. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu Elohei Avotenu ve'imotenu Elohei Abraham Elohei Isaac Elohei Yaakov Elohei Sarah Elohei Rivka Elohei Rachel Elohei Leah Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor Hanora El Elyon Gomel Hasadim Tovim Vekonei Hakol Vezochei Hasdei Avot Ve'imaot Umedi Geula Livnei V'neihem Lema'at Shemo Ve'achava Melech Ozer U'Mashiach U'Magen Baruch atah Adonai Magen Avraham Bezrat Sarah Atah Gibor Le'olam Adonai Mechayei Hakol Atah Rav Le'Hoshia Morid Atah Mechakel Harim Bechesed Mechayei Hakol Berachamim Rabim Somed Noflim Verofei Holim Umatir Asurim Umekayem Emunatov Lishenei Afar Mihamoha Ba'al Gevurot Umidomelach Melech Memit Umehayet Umatmiya Yeshua Vene'eman atah lehachayot hakol Baruch atah Adonai Mehayeh hakol.
Continue with the remainder of our Amidah silently through page 62, either with the words on the pages of the prayer book or the words of our hearts.
Please take your time on this Erev Shabbat before the High Holy Days. Shalom Rav, grant abundant peace to your people Israel.
Sim leolam
we take a moment amidst our joy and our celebration on this Shabbat to think of loved ones and family members, members of our community who are in need of healing, in need of wholeness. And in a moment in the middle of page 253, we'll offer a Mishaberach, a prayer of healing for them. So if you're thinking of someone tonight who could use a bit of wholeness, a bit of healing, please feel free to rise at this time, and as my eyes meet yours, share that name aloud.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. So I don't know how many of you are familiar or have read Yiddish literature, but I am very lucky because I discovered Yiddish literature when I was very young. When I was a young girl, I used to eat Friday night dinner with my family at my grandmother's and then sleep overnight there. And she had a huge bookcase, and one of the books that I always loved was called The Treasury of Yiddish Literature, which I read every time I was there. And it was a very moving, special kind of writing. And of all of the writers, one that touched me the most was Isaac Leib Peretz, I.L. Peretz. Now, you have to understand that Yiddish literature was fairly new. People spoke Yiddish all over Eastern Europe, but nobody wrote fiction or stories in Yiddish. Everything was formal and in Hebrew, and if you were not educated, you could not read it until Isaac Leib Peretz was one of the first who started writing in the language of what he called the Pintele Yid, the little Jew, about the common man. He wrote for the people. Now, what was unique about Peretz is, though he was raised in a Hasidic world and he went to yeshiva, he grew up to be secular. He was not religious at all, and yet he valued the teachings of the Hasidim, and he tried to incorporate them in a way that would speak to all Jews. Now, he lived from 1850 to 1915, and in that time there were Hasidic Jews. There were their opponents called the Misnagdim, who came from Lithuania and were called the Litvaks. They opposed, Hasidism was very radical and new in the 19th century. It was all about emotion and joy and music and dancing, and they thought they were insane. It wasn't about learning the way the Litvaks believed. But there were communists, Zionists, socialists, atheists, secularists. They all spoke Yiddish, and Peretz was speaking to them through these stories. Now, one of his stories takes place right now, right before Rosh Hashanah, like this week, and it's called If Not Higher. And it's a story about a Hasidic rabbi who has such fervent followers, and they know that every year around this time he disappears. Where is he? And the Hasidic followers say he's in heaven. He's ascended to heaven to plead for us that we should be forgiven on the high holidays. But then there's a Litvak, a Lithuanian who only believes in learning and facts and information. And he says, that's not true. I'm going to prove them wrong. And so he decides he's going to expose the rabbi and find out where he goes. So he hides under his bed. All night long, he's nervous. He starts chanting Talmud to keep himself awake because they know the whole Talmud by heart. And in the morning, the rabbi gets up. And this is what happens. The rabbi takes off his Hasidic garb, and he puts on the clothes of a peasant, of a Russian or a Polish peasant. Boots, pants, a big belt. He takes an axe, and he goes out into the forest. And the Litvak is following him. And what does he see? He sees this rabbi chop wood and bring it to a poor Jewish woman. He is reciting the prayers of the morning, the Shachris prayers, the Slichot prayers of Elul, but he is going around basically posing as a peasant and helping the poor. And the Litvak is so moved and impressed by this. From where he comes from, people just sit in the yeshiva and they learn all day and they have nothing to do with anyone else, that he joins the rabbi, becomes a follower, and next year when they say, where does the rabbi go? He ascends to heaven, the Litvak says, if not higher. So this story was not for Hasidim, because they probably didn't even read his stories, but this was for all the other Jews. And he was saying, if you're a communist, if you're an atheist, if you're a socialist, if you're a Zionist, all of your dogma means nothing if you are not performing good deeds. If you're not acting in a compassionate way, all your philosophy, all your politics, all your right, left, middle, center, blue, red, whatever, means nothing if you don't perform good deeds. And this story takes place right now before Rosh Hashanah, and so I would like to give you all a challenge. We're going to be inscribed in the Book of Life, God willing. And there's another story by Peretz that says that when you die or when you're judged, there's a scale, and just one little mitzvah can tip the scale in your favor. So I would like to ask all of you to do one small good deed this weekend. Call someone you haven't talked to. Give someone a challah, a round challah. Invite someone who you know is alone to your break the fast, to one of your high holy day meals. It doesn't have to be big. Text someone that you're thinking of them. I ask you, I challenge you, and then I want you to email me, and let's make a list, and we'll reveal what we have done during the next week. During the next 10 days, I will reveal how many people performed a small little mitzvah, including myself, including the rabbis and cantors. We're all going to do it. And so that's what I wish you, to tip the scales in your favor for this high holidays. Shabbat Shalom. Rabbi Leader, I think it's your turn. Okay.
We rise for the Aleinu.
Page 282, the bottom of the page.
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו קרב, וגורלנו ככל המונה. ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא, ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו אחד.
Let's all be seated, please. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. I had my head in my hands through part of the service today because this is a difficult time of year for me. My father's yard site on the secular calendar, September 15th, and his funeral was the morning of Kol Nidre 3 years ago. So this is a time of bitterness and sweetness and contemplation for me. It's a time of memories for what was and what is no more and what still is. And that's memory. And that's loss. And that's beauty and that's blessing. The High Holy Day liturgy says that God is Zocher Kol HaNishkachot, the one who remembers all that is forgotten. Kaddish is one of the ways we make sure we don't forget. We acknowledge the pain, and we remember the beauty and the love. In just a moment, I'm going to read the names of the loved ones of our congregation who have died during this Shloshim, this past 30 days. And then I'm going to read the names of those who died defending the United States of America in that tragic suicide bombing in Afghanistan. And then the names of all those whose yard sites were commemorated during this past week. In a traditional shul, there are ways for the community to know who's mourning, who's grieving. Could be Kriya shirt, Kriya ribbon. The family that has suffered a loss during Shloshim is walked into the sanctuary last so that everyone knows who's grieving and how to approach them with sensitivity and love. And mourners say certain parts of the Kaddish that others do not. There were all these ways to let the community know who is holding their head in their hands because of loss. And the way we do it at Wilshire Boulevard Temple is for those of you who are able to do so and want to do so, to rise if you're here during the Shloshim period of losing a loved one, or here for the Yortzeit of a loved one. So those of you who are here for Shloshim or Yortzeit and who are able to and would like to rise, please do so now. I will then read all the names, and then the rest of us will rise with you and we'll join together in Kaddish, which you'll find on page 294. We begin now with the names of those who have died during this Shloshim, this past 30 days. Earl Cohen, Joyce Friedman, Edward Gelb, Robert Hazlett, Marcia Katay, Layla Kreider, Howard Levison, George Pines Jr., Virginia Sandler, Andrea Stanford, Jean Whitney, and Alvin Zapersky. We add to their names the names of those who died defending the United States of America. Ryan Noss, Maxton Soviak, Nicole Gee, Johanny Respercherado, Dylan Marola, Riley McCullum, Hunter Lopez, Darren Hoover, Humberto Sanchez, Diegan Page, Jared Schmitz, Kareem Nakui, and David Espinoza. We call to mind also those whose Yortzeits were commemorated during this past week. George Ansell, Marjorie Ansell, Ida Applebaum, Rita Taper Beloit, Sarah Beaumont, Arthur Bogia, Linda Brahm, Francis Brody, Joel Brooks, Ellen Cohen, Sid Coleman, Beverly Cooperman, Douglas Delaney, Ida Deschelle, Max Druten, Ruth Eben, Joe Eimer, Michael Eisner, Shelley Ellenson, Ruth Epstein, Robert Friedman, Edna Freeling, Samuel Galper, Hyman Gartzman, Harold Gelman, Barry Gold, Edward Goldstein, Sophie Greenberg, T. Richard Herlick, Paul Heller, Ronald Hirschhorn, Rabbi Joseph Hurwitz, Sidney Ermis, Dale Cass, Bella Kaufman, Minnie Kay, Patty Kelrick, Edith Levison, Isidore Lieberman, Hans Lind, Nan McGoffin, Rose Markowitz, Michael Meddy, Ida Mayerson, Mel Michaels, Sarah Miller, Larissa Muravina, Faye Nyberg, Mark Narotsky, Monira Pershesky, Harold Pike, Leslie Pollock, Ronald Rubin, Davida Rishal, Lisa Rosen, Robert Rosenblum, Jane Rothschild Mayer, Ethel Ruvelson, Philip Ruvelson, Rose Baleen Saperstein, Yuli Scheinberg, Erwin Siegel, Lucille Small, Bobby Solomon, Florence Solomon, Ann Spielberg, Scott Elliott Srayberg, David Steiner, Helen Tarr, Eva Teiholtz, Heike Walensky, Bennett Wolf, Rosalie Yudovich, Ida Zivitz, and Philip Zivitz. We also call to mind those who died defending the state of Israel and everyone who has died from senseless violence and terrorism all over the world, and everyone who has no one to say Kaddish for them. We take them all as our own this evening before the new year begins, as we rise and join together in Kaddish. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei rabbah be'alma divrach hirute v'yamlich malchute v'chayechon u'v'yomechon u'v'chaye dechol beit Yisrael bagala u'vizman kariv v'imeru Yehe shmei rabbah mevorach leolam u'amei maya yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh Vitadar, vitale, vitalal, shemei kucha, brichu, le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, da'amiran ba'alma, v'imeru, amen. Yehe shalama rabba min shemaya, v'chaim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imeru. Oseh shalom bimromav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imeru. Amen.
Page 358, we join in this selection from the 27th Psalm, which we chant every morning and every evening throughout the month of Elul and throughout the high holidays until Sukkot. We ask one thing of God, to dwell in God's house all the days of our lives.
Let's invite our B'nai Mitzvah forward to help as we lead. Families, bring your whole family up with you. We're going to all do Kiddush and Motzi together. In a second? Okay, I know. All right. Thank you. Mitch, where are you?
And Scott.
Okay, Mitch and Scott. Okay.
Oh, this is going to be
Now,
very dramatic.
this is really a great example of why two congregations are better than one. You're about to hear proof right now. Before Kiddush and Motzi, who's doing the calls? I think they're working it out right now. Take it away, Cantor Gurney.
You ready? Tkiya! Shvarim Turua! Tkiya! Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. That's not bad. It's better than those church bells last Friday we had across the street there.
They're trying. All right. We have our cups of grape juice and wine, and let's join together in Kiddush. Everyone. Baruch atah
Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddeshanu b'mitzvotav v'ratza b'hanu b'shabbat kodsho be'ahava uvratzon hinchilanu zikaron lemase bereshit ki hu yom tzirach lemikra'e kodesh zecher yitziat mitzrayim ki vadu bacharta Eltanu kidashta mikol ha'amim v'shabbat kodshecha be'ahava uvratzon inchaltanu Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh
Shabbat. Amen. L'chaim.
Take a sip.
Come on, B'nai Mitzvah, drink that grape juice.
It doesn't work.
All right, let's unwrap that challah. Unwrap that challah. Unwrap that challah and take it in your hands, B'nai Mitzvah. All right, on the count of three. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen. Shabbat Shalom,
Shabbat
everyone.
Shalom, everyone.
Pull that challah apart. 1, 2, 3. On the count of three. Baruch atah.
Right, buddy. Shabbos.
We want to thank our beautiful musicians tonight. Bill Beck, Susan Rosenstein, Hope Easton, Leo Shelyapo, Jordan Ross. Thank you so much for bringing such beauty to us tonight.
Shabbat Shalom, everybody.